After 7 years, she rejected my proposal saying, "I can't do this." Turns out, this was being faithful. I kicked her out after she confessed everything. 7 years. 7 years I'd woken up next to Sarah, shared coffee, dreams, the mundane and the momentous. She was, I thought, my person. Liam, that's me, 38 years old, an architect, a man who believed in solid foundations. And Sarah, 32, a whirlwind of creative energy and marketing, recently channeling that into becoming some kind of wellness influencer. She was the vibrant color to my more structured lines. We'd talked about the future, of course. Kids, a sprawling house with a big yard. Our forever house, she called it. She'd send me pictures of engagement rings she'd stumbled upon online, always with a casual, "Isn't this one pretty?" For someday. Yeah, someday had felt like it was finally knocking. Our 7th anniversary was on the horizon, and I decided it was time. I've been squirreling away cash, planning this down to the last ridiculous detail. There was this remote mountain lodge, Eagle's Peak, a place Sarah had a faded picture of tacked to her vision board for as long as I could remember. "One day, Liam," she'd sigh, "we'll watch the sunrise from there." Well, we were going to. I'd booked their most luxurious suite, the one with the panoramic balcony overlooking the entire valley, and arranged for a private chef to cook us a special dinner up there. The ring, man, the ring. It was custom. I'd taken a small, deep blue sapphire from my late grandmother's favorite necklace. A story Sarah knew, a story that had made her eyes well up once, and had it set into a simple, elegant band. This wasn't just a proposal. It was us, our history, our future, all in one perfect moment. I'd even, perhaps a bit over-enthusiastically, invited our 2 closest couple friends, my best mate Mark and his wife Chloe, and Sarah's best friend Emily with her husband Ben, to drive up secretly the next day. I'd booked them cabins nearby, envisioning a surprise weekend of celebration. The evening was everything I'd hoped for. The air was crisp and cool, the stars so bright they looked like scattered diamonds on black velvet. The fireplace in our suite crackled merrily after our incredible dinner on the balcony. Soft music played. I remember looking at Sarah, her face illuminated by the firelight, and my heart felt like it was going to burst. This was it. I took her hands, my own trembling just a little, and poured out everything. Our journey, my love, my hopes for our forever. Then I dropped to one knee, opened the small velvet box, and held up the ring. "Sarah, will you marry me?" She just stared, first at the ring, then at me. Her face was a blank canvas for a few seconds. Then something shifted. Panic flickered in her eyes, mixed with an expression I couldn't quite place. Pity? "Oh, Liam," she finally breathed, her voice barely a whisper. "It's a beautiful ring, truly." A pause that stretched for an eternity. "But are you sure this is what we want? Or is this what you think we should want?" My smile froze. My stomach plummeted. She pulled her hands away gently. I feel like I'm on a different path of growth right now," she continued, her voice gaining a strange, detached sort of firmness. "This feels restrictive." Restrictive? My proposal? Us? The word hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. She didn't cry. She didn't offer much more. Just a distant, "I'm sorry if this isn't the reaction you hoped for." The rest of the night is a painful blur. I think I managed to stammer something about understanding, about needing time, but my mind was a catastrophic mess of confusion and a humiliation so profound it felt like a physical blow. The ring felt like a lead weight in my pocket. Later, I had to make those calls. Mark first. "Hey, man, slight change of plans." "Yeah, don't come up tomorrow." "No, everything's well, not really. I'll explain later." Hearing the confusion in his voice, then Emily's, was like twisting the knife. The luxurious suite suddenly felt like a gilded cage. Sarah mostly stayed quiet, curled up on the far end of the sofa, occasionally offering a weak, "I'm really sorry, Liam," but her eyes were elsewhere. She seemed more put out by the awkwardness of it all than by the fact she just detonated our life. The grand gesture, the summit of our dreams, had turned into an avalanche, and I was buried somewhere underneath it all, wondering what the hell had just happened. The drive back from Eagles Peak was the longest, quietest car ride of my life. Each mile stretched into an eternity of strained silence, broken only by my occasional attempts to understand. Sarah, can you just help me understand what changed? What path of growth are you on that doesn't include us? But her answers were infuriatingly vague. She was confused. She needed space to think. She made it sound like I was the one being unreasonable for feeling like my world had just been drop-kicked into orbit. Back in our apartment, the one where we'd built 7 years of life, things felt wrong. Deeply, fundamentally wrong. Sarah tried to slip back into a semblance of normalcy, a little too quickly for my liking. A casual touch on my arm as she passed, asking if I wanted tea. "Let's not make a big deal out of it, Liam," she'd said one morning, as if rejecting a marriage proposal after 7 years was akin to disagreeing on a movie. A big deal? It was the only deal I thought we had. I called Mark the next day. We met for a beer, and I just laid it all out, the words tumbling out in a torrent of hurt and disbelief. Mark, bless him, just listened, his expression growing darker with every detail. Restrictive? Her path of growth? He finally exploded, slamming his pint glass down a little too hard. "What the hell is that, Liam? After 7 years? That's not just cold feet, man. That's a statement. That's a damn insult." He was right, of course. He let me vent, then, more soberly, said, "Don't jump to conclusions about anything else, but don't be a damn fool either. Watch. Listen. Something feels off here, way off." His words echoed in my head. And so, I started to watch. Really watch. Not in an obvious, accusatory way, at least not at first. I was an architect. I noticed details, structures, the integrity of things. The integrity of us suddenly felt questionable. Sarah had recently gotten a new laptop, a work necessity for her burgeoning wellness influencer career, she'd said. Now, she was incredibly protective of it, angling the screen away if I walked by, snapping it shut if I entered the room unexpectedly. Her phone, too. It was always with her, and she'd started taking these hushed, animated calls, stepping out onto the balcony or into the spare bedroom, often emerging with a smile that wasn't for me. The wellness group, led by this guy, Julian, became her universe. He was so enlightened, so intuitive. She'd gush about their breakthrough sessions. Then came the financials. We had a joint credit card for household stuff, bills, groceries. I was paying it off one evening and decided to glance through the itemized statement just out of habit. My eyes snagged on a few charges. Upscale restaurants I'd never heard her mention in a neighboring town. A couple of charges at a rather chic boutique hotel cafe. Definitely not her usual haunt for a quick work coffee. And the dates, they coincided with nights she'd claimed to be at late, work meetings, or those intensive wellness workshops. None of them screamed Julian immediately. They just screamed, not with me. I tried to ask about one of them, a dinner charge. Casually, carefully. "Oh, this place, Saffron Table? What's it like?" Sarah barely looked up from her phone. "Seriously, Liam? I bought some new aromatherapy oils for my group there. They have a little shop attached. Are you tracking my spending now?" Her voice was sharp, laced with accusation. You know, this is exactly the kind of controlling behavior that makes me question things. No wonder I felt suffocated. And just like that, she flipped it. I was the bad guy, the paranoid, controlling boyfriend. I retreated, stung and confused, but a cold knot of unease was tightening in my gut. Mark was right. Something was definitely off. The calls from Sarah's hushed phone conversations became more frequent. The laptop was now password protected with something new. Before, we'd always shared access. The air in our apartment grew thick with unspoken things, a tension so palpable I felt like I was wading through it. My carefully constructed world was showing cracks, and I was starting to fear what lay beneath. A few weeks after the disastrous proposal, Mark called. He sounded uncomfortable. "Liam, mate, you busy?" He never beat around the bush. "I was at the Vinery for a client lunch today. You know, that new wine bar downtown? I saw Sarah. I waited, my breath catching. She was with a guy. Definitely not a work colleague vibe, if you know what I mean. Laughing, his hand on her arm, leaning in close. Looked pretty damn intimate to me." He described the man, tall, trendy, vaguely artistic looking. It matched the way Sarah had described Julian, the wellness guru. You sure it was her, Mark? I asked, even though I knew. Mark's a detail man, too. 100%, Liam. Sorry, mate. That evening, I confronted her, trying to keep my voice even measured. Mark saw you with Julian at the vinery today. He said you two looked pretty cozy for a wellness discussion. Sarah's eyes flashed. Oh, for God's sake. Mark needs to mind his own business. Yes, I was with Julian. He understands my journey, Liam. He's spiritual. It's not what you think. The denial was quick, too quick. He's helping me navigate my feelings. You're just not supporting my personal growth, are you? You want me to stay stuck. The accusation, the deflection, it was becoming her standard operating procedure. Then, a strange little encounter. We had to attend this local charity gala, something we'd committed to months ago. It was awkward, a public performance of unity that felt like a sham. Eleanor, one of Sarah's older, more reserved friends, someone I didn't know well, cornered me by the silent auction table. She had this look on her face, a mixture of sympathy and something else, something knowing. Liam, she said, her voice low, I don't want to meddle truly. But Sarah, she sometimes gets lost in her journeys. Be careful. Not everything is as it seems with her new ventures. It was cryptic, unsettling. Eleanor had always struck me as a straight shooter, someone who wouldn't stir trouble for no reason. She'd once mentioned being badly let down by a close friend who'd gone on a similar journey of self-discovery, so maybe she recognized a pattern. Her words stuck with me, another piece in a puzzle I didn't want to solve. The real jolt came a few days later. Sarah was in the shower, her phone, her main one, on the nightstand. I wasn't planning on looking through it, honestly, but her handbag was on the dresser, slightly open. I just needed to grab my car keys from the communal key bowl next to it. As I reached, my fingers brushed against something hard and unfamiliar tucked into an inner side pocket of her bag. I pulled it out. It was a cheap, old model phone. A burner phone. My blood ran cold. I pressed the power button. It lit up, asking for passcode. I didn't know it, obviously, but the mere existence of this secret phone screamed deceit louder than any argument. Sensing my withdrawal, my increased quietness, Sarah must have realized her usual deflections weren't working as well. One evening, she staged a full-on emotional performance. Tears, trembling hands, the whole 9 yards. She confessed to feeling lost and terribly insecure. Maybe she had leaned on Julian a bit too much for emotional support, she sobbed, but only because she felt I was pulling away, that I was the one being distant and judgmental since the proposal. She didn't admit to an affair, not yet. She was trying to make me feel guilty, to make me the source of her bad behavior. It was a masterful piece of manipulation, and a younger, more naive version of me might have bought it. But the image of that burner phone was seared into my mind. The discovery of the burner phone was a tipping point. I couldn't unsee it, couldn't unknow it. The pretense of our life together felt like a badly written play, and I was tired of acting my part. That evening, after a dinner eaten in near total silence, I waited until Sarah was settled on the sofa, scrolling through her main phone, the picture of oblivious calm. I walked over, placed the burner phone on the coffee table between us, and simply said, "What's this, Sarah?" The color drained from her face. Her eyes darted from the phone to me, wide with a kind of trapped animal panic. I don't know what you mean," she stammered, but her voice was thin, unconvincing. "It's just an old phone. I was meaning to recycle it. An old phone you keep hidden in your handbag?" I kept my tone low, calm, but there was steel in it now. I was done with her games. "Sarah, let's be honest. The unexplained credit card charges for hotels and restaurants. Mark seeing you with Julian looking far more than friendly. Eleanor's warning about your journeys. And now this." I gestured to the burner. "The picture isn't pretty. I deserve the truth. All of it. No more stories, no more deflections." Cornered, she crumbled, but only partially. The first line of defense broke. Tears welled up. "Okay, fine," she choked out. "Julian, yes, things happened with Julian. We got close. Too close." She admitted to the affair, then physical, emotional, the whole devastating package. But she was quick to frame it, to control the narrative. Julian was the sole problem, she insisted. It was a terrible mistake, something that happened because she was so confused and vulnerable after the proposal debacle. A blatant attempt to twist the timeline to her advantage, to make the affair a consequence of my actions, not the cause of a rejection. She even tried to paint Julian as this incredibly persuasive, almost predatory figure who'd taken advantage of her fragile state. It was a performance designed to elicit sympathy and minimize her culpability. I was reeling, the confirmation of an affair with Julian hitting me like a punch to the gut, even though I'd suspected it. But before I could even begin to process that specific betrayal, my main phone buzzed on the table beside me. An Instagram notification. A message request from a profile I didn't recognize. Julian_wellness_journey. My heart lurched. With trembling fingers, I opened it. The message was short, direct. Liam, I think we need to talk about Sarah. I'm starting to think I've been played, and maybe you have too. I'm not sure who's deceiving who here anymore. It seemed Julian, perhaps sensing Sarah trying to cut him loose now that things were imploding, or maybe he'd been tipped off by someone in their precious wellness group, was starting to see through her act. He included his phone number. A wave of nausea washed over me. Sarah was watching me, her eyes narrowed, suspicious. "Who's that?" she demanded. I didn't answer her. The idea of talking to this man, the man who'd been sleeping with my girlfriend, was repulsive. Yet his message hinted at a bigger, murkier picture. Mark, when I called him in a daze a few minutes later after stepping onto the balcony, advised caution. "Be careful, Liam. She might have set this up, or he might be trying to mess with your head." But something in the directness of Julian's message felt genuine, against my better judgment, but fueled by a desperate need for the complete, unvarnished truth. I texted Julian. We agreed to meet for coffee the next morning, a public place, brief and to the point. I had to know what other lies Sarah had been spinning. I had to understand the full scope of this nightmare. The meeting with Julian was surreal. He was younger than I expected, earnest, and clearly agitated. He confirmed Sarah had told him our relationship was practically over, that I was emotionally distant and unsupportive of her growth. He believed her. He also let slip that Sarah had been vague about other close male friends who were just there for her. He'd started to get suspicious when her stories didn't add up. He looked less like a suave seducer and more like another casualty of Sarah's intricate deceptions. He seemed genuinely bewildered and angry at being used. As I listened, a sickening realization dawned. Sarah wasn't just cheating. She was a puppeteer pulling everyone's strings. I walked out of that coffee shop with Julian feeling a strange, cold calm. The anger, the raw pain, it was all still there, but underneath it, a chilling clarity was emerging. This wasn't just a simple case of infidelity. This was a complex, calculated deception that had spanned. Well, that was a question, wasn't it? How long? When I got back to the apartment, Sarah was pacing, agitated. She must have known the meeting with Julian would bring more to light. I didn't waste time. I laid it all out on the table, metaphorically and literally. Julian's version of events, how she'd painted me as the villain to him. Then, I brought out the burner phone again. "I took a guess at your password, Sarah. You always did have a thing for Italian words. Cressida, growth. Or maybe Liberta, freedom?" Her eyes widened. I hadn't actually gotten in, but the bluff worked. "It doesn't matter. The point is this phone, Julian, the secret credit card charges, it all points to something more than one mistake." I then brought up Eleanor's cryptic warning. "Eleanor hinted you had a history of these journeys, Sarah. This wasn't just about Julian, was it? This is who you are, isn't it?" That was it. The final dam broke. Her carefully constructed facade didn't just crack. It shattered into a million pieces. The tears came, but they weren't the manipulative, controlled tears from before. These were jagged, desperate sobs. And then, the full confession. A torrent of words, excuses, self-pity. Yes, there had been others. Not a string of one-night stands. She tried to explain, but a pattern of these intense, overlapping emotional and physical affairs throughout our 7 years. Whenever she felt unseen, or when the thrill wore off our stable life, or when she needed validation. She even had the audacity to try and blame me, in a twisted way, Our life was too predictable. I was too good, too stable, which somehow made her feel inadequate or restless, driving her to seek chaos elsewhere. It was a nauseating monologue of selfishness, a chronicle of her inability to commit to anyone or anything that didn't provide constant, high-intensity affirmation. I listened, and the cold clarity solidified into a hard, diamond-like resolve. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I'd loved and planned a future with, simply didn't exist. She was a phantom, a construct of my own hopes and her elaborate lies. When she finally wound down, gasping for breath amidst her sobs, I spoke, my voice devoid of the rage I felt, just empty and final. There's nothing left to say, Sarah. Our 7 years were built on your lies. Every memory, every shared dream, it's all tainted now. I walked to the closet, pulled out a suitcase. Pack your things. Our condo, the one we co-owned, suddenly felt vast and cold. I'm calling my lawyer tomorrow, I stated, my voice flat. We'll sell, or I'll buy you out. But you are leaving. Tonight. Her tears turned to outrage, then to desperate pleading, then back to manipulative anger. You're just going to throw me out? After 7 years? You have no idea what I've been going through. You're heartless. You're destroying my life. You destroyed any chance of our life. Sarah, years ago, I replied, unmoved. This is just the consequence. She left that night, a trail of bitter accusations and slammed doors in her wake. The silence that descended was deafening, but underneath it, for the first time in months, I felt a sliver of peace. The next morning, I called Ms. Davies, a no-nonsense lawyer Mark had recommended. The legal process of untangling our lives began. Mark and Chloe were rocks, providing practical help and unwavering support. Surprisingly, Emily, Sarah's supposed best friend, called me a few days later, full of apologies, claiming she had no idea of the extent of it, and that Sarah had been feeding her a very different story. It seemed Sarah's web was unraveling everywhere. I sold the ring, the beautiful cursed thing. The money went into a new account I labeled New Foundation. A few weeks later, Eleanor called, a follow-up I hadn't expected. She'd heard through the grapevine that Sarah was already deeply involved with a new man, someone older, wealthier from that same wellness cult. It was a final, grim confirmation Sarah wouldn't change. My decision had been the only one possible. Months have passed. I'm in a smaller apartment now. The condo sold, assets divided. I've poured myself into my work, reconnected with old friends, started hiking again, rediscovering the man I was before Sarah, or at least the man I was when I thought Sarah was real. I haven't dated. I'm not ready. Healing isn't linear, and some days the phantom limb of our shared past still aches. But the bitterness is fading, replaced by a kind of hard-won wisdom. The mountain lodge, Eagle's Peak, was meant to be our summit. Instead, it was the terrifying, necessary start of my climb out of a 7-year avalanche of lies. The view from here, though, is finally clear. And for the first time in what feels like an eternity, the path ahead, rocky as it might be, feels entirely, unequivocally my own.